Welcome to this episode of Conversations in Education, the collective voice of the Guild, the official podcast of the Teachers Guild of New South Wales. I'm Sarah Warby, Counsellor for Advocacy for the Guild, and together we'll explore the ideas, people and passions shaping education in our profession and beyond. Today we'll be speaking with Alex Wharton. Alex is a teacher based in regional New South Wales and a PhD candidate at Western Sydney University's Institute for Culture and Society. With a background spanning K-12 teaching, school leadership and principalship, Alex is deeply passionate about the role education plays in equipping families to critically engage with media in an increasingly digital world. He holds degrees from the University of Sydney, Macquarie University, is a Google certified educator, and is a recipient of the 2021 Schools Plus Teaching Award. Alex has held a range of leadership roles across schools and professional associations, including the English Teachers Association of New South Wales and the Teachers Guild of New South Wales, and continues to contribute widely to educational excellence, research and professional learning across Australia. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and great to chat. I feel a bit speechless after hearing that, so I'm happy to end the podcast chat here. No, but it's great to be with you and share today.
Yes, well, thank you so much for coming along. And further to what I just shared about your extensive background, I'd love you to introduce yourself a bit further and let us know what initially drew you to the profession.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah and colleagues. So, Alex Wharton's my name, as Sarah so kindly and generously introduced me, and I'm I identify as a teacher really first and foremost, and always have been. And I'm situated in northwest New South Wales and Kamilaroi country, and really my current role is kind of a researcher, a teacher researcher. I'm in the third year of my PhD, which is looking at critical thinking and media literacy and how young people engage with screens and media, particularly social media, and how they communicate in their home, working with parents. And there's lots of rhetoric, Sarah, around negative use, and we know and see firsthand kind of some of those dangers or more extreme responses to media and tech in homes around bans and cyberbullying and safety. But young people are actually also critically engaging with media in new and exciting ways, and they're educating their parents, they're educating grandparents, and so there's lots to be said. So as a full-time PhD student, I'm really pursuing that. English teaching, of course, is my first love and still remains that, so I'm really pleased when I'm able to continue to participate that in my current community in town as well. And I kind of think about my journey on education, Sarah. I don't know if you identify with this at all, but as a kid, I remember kind of playing teachers, loving learning, and in primary school was a happy place for me. And then when I went to high school, it was really kind of year 10 as a boy that my brain started to shift, end of year 10, early year 11, where I actually started to settle down and didn't find so much joy in being the class clown and hanging out with my mates anymore. But I fell in love with learning, and it was ancient history, actually. And learning about the world in the past and how we could, be more enriched as a society from having that cultural understanding. That I had an amazing teacher in my senior years who modeled the benefits of the teaching profession and how fulfilling it was. And that was, that was kind of then the journey and the pathway continued onto uni and pre-service education, which I really loved at Sydney, where I was involved in the education faculty, education and social work it was back then, and did lots of things, and it even became involved in the ETA, the English Teachers Association, as a pre-service teacher, which opened up my professional journey and pathway in so many ways as well.
Yes, fantastic. And that's actually where we first met way back then as pre-service teachers getting involved with the ETA. So it's been amazing to watch your journey since that time. And really, as part of that journey, there's various key areas of practice and research that you advocate for. So at the moment, what is it that you're most passionate about advocating for in the profession?
Yeah, there's two things, Sarah, that come to mind. The first one is really worth mentioning and thinking some more about teacher agency. That's something I'm really passionate about, because I think that when we empower teachers to trust their own professional judgment and their expertise, student outcomes naturally follow. And there's been lots of undermining of the profession politically and socially and culturally over many, many years. And so in smaller regional schools, perhaps, where there is opportunities to do innovation, where you're a part of the community and known and seen, and that teacher autonomy comes perhaps a little more freely. I've been really excited and really encouraged there. And so I think the nature of the teacher, as it continues to change and develop in a world of technology, I think teacher agency teachers continue to need to stand up for themselves and advocate But also, Sarah, I think the nature of the work with technology, as I alluded to earlier, and kind of that thinking around the critical engagement with screens. Today's schools are really data heavy. The teachers are time poor. The art of teaching as a discussion kind of is such a broad concept. And so I think, actually saying, well, how are we teaching kids? What are we doing to stop and reflect ourselves and think about that as educators? And so creating time for teachers where we can, that will continue to create strong educational outcomes, because young people, and being good models for us as teachers, and how we use our own devices and engage with technology, that critical thinking, that's got to be a kind of this holistic partnership approach. And so I do think, yeah, schools are such interesting organizations, aren't they? And the nature of, yeah, engaging with the future and preparing our young people for the workforce is both linked with teacher agency and the work we do with engaging with technology, and in being really intentional and meaningful ways as well.
And it's such a developing space that it feels like you're on a treadmill trying to keep up a lot of the time. But one point also that I'd just like to touch on that you mentioned there as well is your experience moving regionally.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I grew up in Sydney in the eastern suburbs, and by the beautiful beaches there, and went to school in that area, and I never really saw myself as someone who went to the country, because I had family and cousins who lived out near Tamworth, Sarah, which you'll be familiar with, and like a beautiful part of the state. And then I married my beautiful wife Jenny, and she's a primary school teacher, and so when we were living and teaching in the Northern Beaches at the time in a leadership position, and had a wonderful time there. But Sydney and the schools that I was working at had a huge amount of teachers. Sarah, they were relatively well resourced. It took us an hour to get anywhere in Sydney, and we both looked at a map of New South Wales, and we're talking together and said, well, we're both teachers, we're both quite mobile. Where could we go that needs teachers, perhaps that's less funded, less supported, that we could really, as a young couple, make a significant investment and contribution in? And that was where the northwest of New South Wales opened. And that's been such a transformative thing, Sarah. We've been here for 9 years now. We've got our children here. And to be a part of a rural community, is so personally and professionally fulfilling, because you kind of see this tangible reward and impact of the investments you make into young people when you go to Woolies and they serve you, and they might actually make those connections from class. When you see them in the community, you connect with the parents and the families as a whole, and I found that really different to teaching in a Sydney school as well. So it's been this really enriching experience and quite transformative as an educator.
Yeah, and I really value too the fact that, as you mentioned, it's 9 years you've been
That's right.
out west now,
Yes.
and it's so brilliant to hear when people go and decide to invest in rural and regional communities and stay, because there are people who go, oh yeah, it's a great opportunity, we'll go out and then we'll take it back to where we want potentially to be. But spending that time in rural communities, I think, is so important, and
That's right.
it's really nourishing to the community because
It
they
is.
do see a lot of people move in and out.
It is. And you've got that experience, Sarah, as someone from who's spent time in a regional community. You know that. And the department, like, it's I think quite strategically, the Department of Education has the Be on the Line program for
Mm.
pre-service teachers, where they can have a taste of a prac, and there's significant incentives to teach in regional and rural schools. But it also means you don't have to go out really to a really remote community. We've still got one movie cinema, we've still got a Coles and Woolies, but we're also kind of 5 hours away from Sydney. And so, there's just so many opportunities to teach in the country, and rural and remote education has become a huge passion and area of interest in mine to be an advocate again as well.
Yeah, and tying into that and the other experiences that you've had in education, what's an insight or a lesson that you think that's significantly shaped your professional experience?
Yeah, look, I remember having the trying to craft the perfect lesson plan. Sarah, do you remember this? As like an early career teacher, you'd go in
Mm.
and like want to have the high expectations. And I remember thinking these lessons were going wrong because I hadn't built the bridge of trust with my students. The content will actually kind of never went across it. And so for me, the lesson I come back to is that teaching is all about relationships, and relationships are the conduit for all learning. Relationships are the
So
conduit for
true.
all learning, because no one's going to learn if they don't feel safe and supported. We know that as adults. We know that as for young people, that's true. And so I do come back to the nature of, knowing your students, how they learning. Like, that's the teaching standards as well, isn't it? And how we
Mm.
actually engage with that. Because, yeah, students won't learn. And the perfect lesson plan I learned over a number of years will quickly crumble because that content won't be transferred and the students won't have that engagement. There's a great quote, Sarah, that people may not always remember exactly what you said or what you did, but they'll always remember how they made you feel.
So
And so,
true.
yeah, just thinking about that nature of human relationship, and that's what's so unique about the profession as well.
Definitely, and also so challenging in other ways. And tying in with that, also, are there any particular practical ideas or strategies that teachers could take away from your experience and apply in their own context?
Yeah, look, I think being with our background, Sarah, in secondary, I think there's a real time pressure when we get into the classroom to teach the content. We've got our crowded curriculum and syllabus. But I think, Sarah, like looking for any opportunity to make those connections with students. I used to do something quite intentionally called the 1 minute check-in, where I'd kind of spend the first 60 minutes, that the first 60 seconds, sorry, of that class as the students are coming in, they're unpacking their books, to chat with
Mm.
them about how did that soccer game go on the weekend. In my context, it's like, how's the motorbike that you're fixing? They'll tell me about the dog rounding up the sheep, the pigs. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's that settling time that I use to check in and build relationships, and that kind of changes the academic learning culture and the chemistry of the student learning environment for that hour, because you're giving them the sense that they're known and valued, and that's quite transformative to anyone. We all want to be known, Sarah, and valued and seen. And I think that's, yeah, just encouraging teachers. You might be standing at the door as your students come in. It might be that one or two students you chat to on the way out that might often hang around after class. That relationship building, don't take that for granted, and don't try and rush it away because we've got to open up the novel. We've got to get through the test. We've got to prepare for the assessment, because teaching so much more about that academic input. Like I said, it's
Mm.
relationship and your life building, really, which is a huge privilege. How many other workers and jobs can say they do that?
Very true, very true. And it's that proactive front end engagement that hopefully negates any disengagement later on,
So true.
that's so powerful in the relationships. So, in doing that, and as we know, it can be a very taxing aspect of our profession to be investing so much in so many relationships. And maybe in that area or another area, what is it that actually sustains you during the challenging nature overall of what it means to be an educator?
Yeah, that's such a great point, Sarah. I remember reading, this was research from a few years ago, so it's probably even changed, but teachers, Sarah, have over 2,000 interactions a day. So if you think about it, as soon as we get out of our car in the car park or get off the train or the bus, our mind is engaging, and we're thinking about the lesson planning, the preparation, the parents, the staff. And in those hard days, and there are so many of them where the lesson plans don't go, we're struggling with our marking load, whatever it might be, significant issues, perhaps in the school or community, the staff room for me has always been this this teaching as a team sport. You've got colleagues, you've got friends who have gone on to become godparents for my own children. Like, the relationship and the community and camaraderie of fellow colleagues has been such an enriching thing. And if there are listeners, Sarah, that find that hard in their own school and think that, oh, that's not my staff room, I don't feel trusted, I don't feel respected, then looking beyond your staff room in your school through teacher associations, through mentoring. I've been so richly blessed and benefited by colleagues like you, Sarah, and through the guild and associations again, who have mentored me, invested me, have taken me under their wing, who I can pick up, who I can share a resource with. They will share one back. Sometimes there might be online communities. There are huge, teacher Facebook groups. I'm not on social media, Sarah, so I can try and be a bit more disciplined with my life and hours. But I certainly have, when I was, those, teacher online communities were a great support. And I think, during those challenging times, like, just knowing that you are one of a bigger part that are building the future collectively is really what kept me showing up.
Mm. Oh, it's so essential, that phrase that you used. I really like that. It's a team sport, even though, yeah, there's the moments you're in the one person in front of the room in the classroom, but yeah, to get there, it's always remembering actually how many people helped me with that lesson plan or that resource, or
So
just
true.
those conversations before
So,
going
so
into that
true.
room. And something that you touched on there as well with associations and as you mentioned, being part of the Teachers Guild and the English Teachers Association. Uh, what do you believe those organisations contribute to the profession? And I'd love to hear too your insights of uh, what is it going into those associations that maybe someone who hasn't been involved before could think about? Or
Mm.
what, insights do you have around engaging with an association, maybe for the first time or over an extended period of time, just to help people if they're maybe already involved or not sure if they do want to get involved?
Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah. Like the organizations and professional associations have had such a huge role to play. Even as an early career teacher, Sarah, I was actually blessed with this amazing opportunity to be elected to NESA's Quality Teaching Council, which has since been dissolved through various iterations of the government organization. But I was basically there representing early career teachers and accredited teachers, kind of as a voice representing independent schools in the particular context I was in. And I just kind of never thought like that would be possible, that we were having, meetings with the kind of heads of NESA and the department, and, the opportunity to contribute as an early career teacher. So I would say anyone has something to offer, including pre-service teachers. And I said that earlier. That was my first involvement with teaching associations, when my supervising teacher took me under their wing and said, it'd be great if you join this. But I think organizations like the Guild are quite significant. They provide a unified voice, I think. They help us elevate teaching and present teaching as more than a job, than, that we're a profession, we have standards set, there's a culture of excellence that we seek to reward and acknowledge. And, there's great opportunities through World Teachers Day awards and research awards. And, I think there's so much benefit there. And my key, Sarah, my hack, it's time consuming and I'm not on social media, so I don't get like a huge like info flow. I often have to go searching for information. But my hack is like the old fashioned newsletter. So when
Mm.
your association sends out your newsletter, I like read that cover to cover. I pore over it. And if there's opportunities there to connect and engage, so I might be a new member and I'm going to join the PE Teachers Association. I've never joined an association before. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to become a member. I've paid my membership fee. And then when they send me a welcome newsletter or a term one update or a week 3 term one update, I'm going to read that and be interested, because I've obviously been invested enough to support it financially. And I'm going to look for opportunities to build that community, to remind myself that teaching isn't an island. Because for me, looking back in those newsletter opportunities, it might be like apply for a conference scholarship. Are you interested in being an editor or proofreading a particular article for a journal? Like whatever it might be, there are so many opportunities to get involved. And I look back now, and as someone who's been teaching for over 15 years and been in education and schools, that work and being engaged has really helped me see that beyond my school gates, there's the profession, and that almost like oxygen that I need to keep my practice fresh and inspired. Because
Mhm.
without that, Sarah, without that input, without the conversations and colleagues like we're having today, it just, you're not aware of what else is out there. That little
Mm.
boost, that pick me up, that actual reminder of, yes, we do have the best job in the world and it's so worth doing. So I do think there's so much to be gained and mined from the riches, let alone, of course, how professionally satisfying it is to volunteer and give back. Sarah,
Mm.
volunteer rates in Australia are at kind of an all-time low. We've got a changing society and culture around that. And so I do think the
Mm.
future of associations is interesting. But people who go into teaching, of course, are givers, and they're so generous, both resourcing and with their time. And so, yeah, it's also building up that next generation as well.
Yeah, and that's a really good point you make about building up the next generation. What do you see as being the sort of maybe the journey or the life cycle of being in an association? Do you see it as seasons? Is it something that maybe people can be mindful of going, oh, is this going to be for my whole career? I'm expected to do so much on top of what I'm doing, or do you have a
Yeah.
way of thinking about it
I
too
do.
as
I know you and I have talked about, I love the seasons metaphor, and I do think of that. And I also kind of think of it as a path, and that along anyone's journey, Sarah, you're going to have different connections and you're going to have different needs as an educator. Your needs evolve. So as you perhaps progress through and you might do more work in education or leadership, you might find your community of the subject associations is perhaps not going to be the one that you need. You might be more interested in pursuing a different network of colleagues, but you'll always still be so enriched from that time you had in the subject associations. And then if you're like me, you say, actually, you know what? I'm really going back to my heart of what I love to do, which might be classroom teaching. You've got those relationships and those histories. So it's never like a lifelong sign on the dotted line, you're signing your life away. But I think on this kind of path, right, the journey that we're all on, where
Mm,
needs and wants and desires change, and it might be like opening the door to tertiary education, for example, doing work in universities, research, teaching, lecturing, marking, even.
mm,
Think, the colleagues and the contexts and the associations that you have mean that your needs as a professional evolve. And I don't think we should shy away from that at all. And in fact, have more conversations, more robust conversations around how can we be helping each other? What are the needs of the organization? Again, the succession planning, I do think there's a lot to be said. The autumn season, the
mm.
aging season, two roads to, do you remember Robert Frost's Sarah, two
Yes.
roads diverge in a yellow wood, of course, all the connotations with that. And that actually times change, and we've got a path presented us, and
Mm,
there's two options. Which one are we going to take? And yeah, seeking out what's going to be best for us in that professional particular time. And again, that's where colleagues and conversations are so rich
mm.
and beneficial, because someone else who's 5 or 10 years down your track where you want to go has that respect, has that respect, and they've got those insights as well.
Yeah, and it's so careers and professional journeys are so dynamic now, isn't it? It's not necessarily the professional journey of you're in one school for your whole career, or
No,
you
that's
have to be
right.
one association for your whole career. There's lots of opportunities to renew and refresh and ensure that too at the same time you're helping renew and refresh your associations. So
So true.
yeah.
So true.
Now, here's a big picture question for you. What gives you hope for the future of education?
Yeah, look, the first thing that comes to mind, Sarah, is like around creativity. The creativity of our teachers, the people who show up every day. There are so many challenges of facing our profession and facing the work in schools that happens. And it's anything, Sarah, from like, legalism and red tape and requirements to wider challenges of, systems and policies and curriculum, and just the nature of our work's continually changing and evolving. And I think, well, despite all these challenges, I look around in my own staff room, I think about colleagues I've worked with, you again, other networks, and I see educators finding like incredible and innovative ways that reach their students with relevant literature. In my case, as an English teacher, that reach their students with relevant stories every single day. And they're being creative. They're embracing technology. They might be tackling AI head on, Sarah, and actually
Mm.
talking about the essay prompt they're going to put in, get the essay up on the screen, and then critique it with their students. They're being creative around what the situation and the context there is. And I think that's something about, like, the teaching profession, which goes back to the ancient world for as long as time has began. Stories and teaching has been there. And there's something about the human spirit there that's kind of unbreakable in sharing and passing knowledge on, and wanting to do that. And I think we look at where we are now in 2026 and beyond, and the creativity of teachers continues to shine through as that innovative practice and craft.
So true. Well, thank you so much, Alex. It's always so wonderful to chat with you. And gosh, the topics we've ranged through in just such a short time, from media literacy and regional teaching to ancient history inspiration, inspiring teachers, gosh, advocating for agency and the academic learning culture that ties into how much we do in each part of our day. It's
So true.
it's so far ranging, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the creativity and the insights from your research as it comes out as well. So it's been wonderful as always to chat with you, and yeah, looking forward to seeing where the seasons and where the path takes us next.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah. It's been a delight. And I'd say to anyone, listening, just be reminded that, the work as we do as teachers is often invisible, and it might feel like that, but it's never insignificant. And yeah, the work we're doing, Sarah, even just through chatting today, modeling that practice actually is building the foundation for lifelong learning and modeling that. So it's been a real joy to and pleasure to chat. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So don't forget to follow the Teachers Guild of New South Wales on social media and join us as we continue to celebrate and advocate for teachers across our profession.